The noble sport of pinball. Accumulate points by guiding a ball around a specially designed pinball cabinet. Use patience, poise, and precise flipper control to keep the ball in play while hitting bumpers, targets, and ramps to rack up scores in the millions. Found mostly in arcades, pinball machines are a bit too hefty to fit comfortably into most homes. As such, would-be pinball wizards had to find other ways of bringing the thrill of their favourite ball-based pursuit into the living room. Time for video games to save the day once again. A competent game that's able to replicate the physics and feel of pinball can provide a great alternative to making a trip to the arcade. Also, with pinball entering the virtual world, the limitations of real life need not apply. Take away the rules though, and things start to get a little out of hand. With that said then, let's look at some pinball games that take the classic combination of balls and flippers and mix in some other ingredients that take things in unexpected and wacky directions. Just don't flip out when you see some of these, okay? And don't flip out over that pun either. I'm Peter from TripleJump, and here are the 10 strangest pinball video games. Number 10. Akira Psycho Ball. Based on the 1988 animated movie famous for its cyberpunk setting, cool motorbikes, and large foreheads, Akira Psycho Ball for the PS2 attempts to translate all the action and drama of Akira into 4 digital pinball tables. Happily, the lights and sounds of Neo Tokyo proved to be a fine accompaniment to the ball-rolling shenanigans. Futuristic ideas like transforming tables complicate matters for the player, and just to make sure you know you're enjoying an Akira-themed pinball game, clips of the movie will play when you hit some of the targets or achieve certain goals. The game was released in 2002 in Japan to coincide with a DVD re-release of the movie, and it was translated and released in Europe the following year as well. It never saw the light of day over in the USA though, which is a shame because it's a very decent pinball game with a cool premise. Akira Psycho Ball wasn't the only PlayStation pinball title based on a surprising franchise either. Austin Powers Pinball for the PS1 was based on the wacky spoof spy movie, and Kiss Pinball, also on PS1, was based on the face-painted rock band Kiss. Oh boy, I had some crazy nights with that one, let me tell you. Number 9. Flipnik Ultimate Pinball. Flipnik Ultimate Pinball for PS2 was released in 2003, and at first glance seems like a fairly standard pinball simulator. Nothing looks like it would be out of place on an actual pinball table, everything appears to be obeying the laws of real-world physics, and hang on a minute, is that ball shooting down UFOs? Once you dig a bit deeper into Flipnik, you'll see the developers actually decided not to tie themselves down with ridiculous and insignificant concepts like realism. Gravity-defying rails, multiple layered tables, and fantastical settings are all the norm here. Ever wanted to hit pinballs up a beautiful tropical waterfall? Well then Flipnik is the game for you. If UFOs and jungles aren't weird enough for you, Flipnik has several more gears of outrageousness to cycle through. Its geometry stage sees you taking on pinball challenges that channel the likes of Breakout and Pong, and its evolution stage takes place in Earth's atmosphere with a flaming skull and various 3D rendered scientific visualizations floating about. Put it this way, if you start seeing stuff like this down at your local arcade, it's probably time to go home. Number 8. Sonic the Hedgehog Spinball. Sonic can roll into a ball, so he can be a pinball, right? That's presumably what Sega thought when they developed this 1993 Mega Drive oddity. Forcing the blue spiky mascot into a gigantic pinball machine is a decent idea for a spin-off, and while the game certainly has its issues, there's a fun, flippy adventure in there for those willing to dig for it. The backstory to the game is that Dr. Robotnik has built his latest labyrinthine layer on top of a volcano, which powers his his new robot creation factory. Dr. Robotnik building robots is something I totally get, but the fact that his new fortress takes on the form of various pinball tables has a bit less justification behind it. But just don't think too hard about it and get to flipping, that's my motto. The pinball-themed levels on offer include a toxic cave system, a lava power plant, and a robotic creation machine. Guide Sonic through all of these areas, collect the Chaos Emeralds, and beat the various bosses to ensure Robotnik's plans go up in smoke. Weirdly, Sonic also indulges in a bit of real pinball on an actual pinball table between levels. Honestly, I'd have thought he'd never want to see another pinball again after literally being one, but no, he's got time for this, apparently. Number 7. Metroid Prime Pinball. Samus can roll into a ball, so she can be a pinball, right? That's presumably what Nintendo thought when they developed this 2005 DS oddity. Forcing the cool armored mascot into a gigantic pinball machine is... Hold on, I feel like I'm repeating myself here. Look, basically, Nintendo made a Metroid pinball spin-off in 2005, and it's pretty much Sonic Spinball, but with space bounty hunters instead of spiky critters that you find in hedgerows. Despite being reduced to naught but a sphere for most of the adventure, Samus is still able to wall jump and fire weapons, which is just as well, considering that various enemies will be stalking the pinball tables. There are even boss fights, which Samus will need to overcome if she's going to locate all of the artifacts needed to finish the game. Incidentally, the idea for Metroid Prime Pinball was formed when producer Kensuke Tanabe was inspired by Mario Pinball Land, another pinball game based on a different franchise and released for the Game Boy Advance in 2004. Sonic and Samus are known for rolling up into a ball though, whereas Mario isn't. Maybe that should have been on this list instead. Number 6. Digital Pinball Necronomicon. Released in Japan only in 1996, this Sega Saturn exclusive pinball game has a very occult feel. The title references the infamous Book of the Dead from H.P. Lovecraft lore, and there are lots of shadowy churches and ominous robed fellows walking around. Oh, and one of the tables is called Cult of the Bloody Tongue. I think it's fair to say we've well and truly entered the dark side of pinball games here, but no need for them to swear about it, is there? The atmosphere of Digital Pinball Necronomicon is truly hypnotizing if you're into all that kind of stuff. You'll interact with pinball tables decorated with occult symbolism as chugging heavy metal riffs accompany the flipper and bumper noises, all while a dramatic voiceover recites ominous scripture hinting at the coming of some omnipotent being. No other pinball experience is going to hold a ritual candle to it. The cutscenes are really something else too. Following our robed friend as he apparently seeks out the Necronomicon, these live-action videos are littered with spooky imagery and backed up by guitar performances from John Petrucci, founding member of progressive metal band Dream Theater. I would recommend tracking down a Japanese copy if you're interested in giving the game a go, but then again I'd be worried there'd be some kind of terrible price to pay before you can claim it as your own. And I'm not talking about rising import taxes. Number 5. Kyutenkai Fantastic Pinball. Kyutenkai Fantastic Pinball shares a lot of similarities with the previous entry. It's a pinball game, obviously, it's for the Sega Saturn, and it was only released in Japan. In all other aspects, however, it's the polar opposite. No looming shadows, heavy metal music, or grim occult moodiness here. Nauseatingly bright colours, cute anime characters, and upbeat jaunty tunes are the order of the day. Kyutenkai Fantastic Pinball allows you to choose from 3 different characters before you pull the plunger, each one affecting how you approach the game. 2 of the characters appear to be magical cleric-type personages, while the third is some sort of tortoise woman. Once you get to the pinball table, you can expect to interact with strange crab-like creatures, a climbing bunny lady, and more quirky critters than you can flip a flipper at. However, as far as things like story and setting go, I have absolutely no idea what's going on. That's the beauty of pinball though. It doesn't matter if the plot doesn't make sense, because everyone knows the rules of the game, and no matter how complex or bat poop insane things get, you can still have a good time with the gameplay. Even when you find yourself playing pinball football against mummies, just smile and keep on flipping. Number 4. Yoku's Island Express. It's not completely unheard of for developers to go searching under rocks in their gardens for video game protagonist inspiration. Just look at mini-beast heroes like Earthworm Jim, Charmy Bee, and whatever the thing from Hollow Knight is. In 2018 though, Swedish developers Villa Gorilla decided they needed a creepy crawly protagonist for their pinball platformer idea, and they went with the mighty Dung Beetle. It was a stroke of genius though, really, as Dung Beetle protagonist Yoku can attach himself to a ball much like a real dung beetle attaches itself to, well, dung, and this ball is whatever gets flipped around by the paddles and bumpers situated around the levels. You see, unlike other pinball adventures where the protagonist basically serves as the ball in a giant pinball machine, Yoku's Island Express instead presents side-scrolling platformer-style levels and gives you a main character that can't jump. How does Yoku get from platform to platform then? Well, by using convenient pinball flippers positioned strategically throughout the world, of course. What this results in is a fun platformer with a unique pinball twist. Also, just to add to the strangeness, the reason Yoku is flipping around a tropical island attached to a giant ball in the first place is because he's the postmaster. That's right, a dung beetle is delivering letters via the wonders of pinball transportation. I think that qualifies as strange. It's our number 4. Hope you enjoyed it. Number 3. Odama. Back in the early 2000s, Japanese video game producer and strangeness connoisseur Yutaka Saito was tasked with dreaming up a pinball simulation for the GameCube. Previously responsible for the bizarre and unsettling Dreamcast oddity Seaman, Saito is no stranger to pushing the limits of weirdness in video games. As such, it should come as no surprise to anyone that he decided to take the concept of pinball and cross it with samurai warfare. Odama looks like someone made a pinball mod for Shogun Total War, and allows players to take on the role of protagonist Yamanouchi Kagetora as he leads his clan against a villainous warlord. In order to defeat this powerful general, Kagetora unleashes his clan's secret weapon, a legendary sphere known as the Odama. This Odama is basically a giant ball that players can fling at their opponent's defenses, bringing down their gates and overwhelming their cities. Thanks, Odama. As if that wasn't weird enough, Odama came complete with a microphone and included voice commands, which allowed players to give orders to their troops as they moved around the pinball battlefield. As such, Odama is the only game that we are aware of that lets you take on armies of samurai by flipping balls around and shouting at them. Now that's quite the claim to fame. Number 2. Rollers of the Realm. It's time for pinball with a fantasy tilt now, as Rollers of the Realm, released on multiple formats in 2014, attempts to bring the worlds of pinball and medieval magical adventuring together. Most fantasy video games see you amass a party of adventuring companions to undertake epic quests in a mystical world. And Rollers of the Realm doesn't stray too far from the norm. Well, apart from the fact that all the characters manifest as balls, that is. Your spherical companions will accompany you to various fantasy locations. Ancient forests, dimly lit caverns, and spooky crypts all get the pinball treatment, and you can use your party's various skills and abilities to enhance your ball handling in new and interesting ways. For example, rogues do more damage if they knock into enemies from behind. Knights can charge through environmental obstacles with ease, and healers can patch up your precious flippers. Complex character progression and a decent story all add to a fun and atmospheric combination of flippers and fantasy. And Rollers of the Realm finally answers the age-old question of what Lord of the Rings might have been like if all the heroes were balls. I know, it's a thought that's kept us all up late at night. And number 1, Petanque. Released for the 3DO back in 1994, this 3D pinball-based experience takes the flippers out of the equation and lets you control the ball directly. The ball in Petanque takes the form of some kind of UFO-looking puck, and the tables are an absolute visual assault of hidden tubes, sharp angles, and high walls plastered with constantly looping FMV. There are 3 tables available to explore: the Surf Room, the Love Room, and the Disaster Room. They're all more or less the same, and the only real difference between them is the theming. The Surf Room has waves and sharks in the background, the Love Room sports miscellaneous miscellaneous footage of love-struck couples, and the disaster room has explosions and things. As with normal pinball, you'll be aiming for targets and ramps, only without the aid of flippers, and with jagged, busy visuals disorientating your senses. Petanque touted itself as a thrilling combination of pinball and a fairground ride, all playing out in cutting-edge third-person 3D. What players actually ended up with was a bizarre game riddled with poor controls and confusing visuals. I guess Petanque just proves that pinball machines are a lot like dolphins. They don't really work without their flippers.